Lower, strip. Anybody want to take a stab at that one? Yeah, I didn't think so. So it takes the white space. Any invisible characters at the beginning or end of that string will be removed. Anybody, can anybody envision why we might want to use that? Because you can't see them. That is a good start to an answer. What's a use case for that?
If you want the user to respond with a certain answer in a prompt, and if they accidentally press a space, you want
Yes, yes, that is it. Literally, the most common use case scenario for strip is cleaning up user input. Now, I told you that in this class we're going to not just talk about how to do programming, we're going to talk about how to build software. And part of that is learning how to deal with the massive variety of crap all of your users are going to do to try and ruin your program. Honestly, you'll think you have it dialed in. You have a program that you can use it just fine. You test it yourself and you're like, oh, look at when I type this, it works fine. And then literally you're like, hey mom, come over here and test this out for me. She will sit down and break it with two keystrokes, guaranteed. She will type the very last thing that anybody would ever type, and then it will be broken. So it's a good piece of software when the software can deal with whatever your mom sits down and types at the keyboard, or your grandma, or your uncle, or whatever. Why am I picking on old people? Well, experience mostly, because every time I create something like that, or when I was younger and I would create this really cool interactive game, and I would go show it to my mom, and she'd be like, "How do I do it?" And then she'd sit down and break it, and I'd be like, "Well, that's not how it was supposed to go." So building good software is about user proofing your software, and one of the number one things people do, and I've even seen people do it in this class, right? When we used the input function to gather input from the user, there were at least two or three of you that when you were testing it, one of the first things you did, because when input comes up, let me just show you here. Ooh, that's good spelling. When input comes up, it does this, and it puts this cursor right here. And instinctively, many people, I won't say most, but I would say it's getting close to half in my experience, feel a little claustrophobic about starting their typing right next to that colon. Mostly because we've been trained that after we type a colon, we create a space, right? So we see a colon, and the first thing we want to do at the keyboard is this. And if I'm saying type your age, and I hit a space and then a number, I've just created a whole different kind of string. So what I want to do with the strip is if you type a space at the beginning or the end of your answer, I'm just going to get rid of it. I'm going to clean up whatever it is you put in. That doesn't guarantee, that's not the only thing I need to do to user proof my application, but it's a big start because user input with the keyboard, you get all kinds of weird stuff. Another one on websites. If I create a website that has a username and a password login, this happens all the time. People will copy and paste the username and password, maybe from an email or from another document or whatever. A lot of times when they copy it, they'll get a space at the end of it, and then they're like, well, it doesn't work. Well, if I'm being careful in my programming, I make sure when they enter that password that I strip off spaces, and then I don't allow them to have spaces as part of their password when they create it in the first place. So I'm cleaning it up. I'm removing those random possibilities that don't make sense that people inadvertently do without even thinking about it. Swap case, you make it upper if it's lower and lower if it's upper. You can replace characters, and you can find characters. These two are really kind of fun. Let's talk a little bit about those in a little bit more. Um, let's see.